just like a friend from back home.
This is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio.
PHLV Radio.
The Filipino American Cancer Care now brings you On the Air with FACC, tributes and support to those impacted by cancer. On the Air with FACC, the Filipino American Cancer Care on PHLV Radio.
Magandang gabi sa ating mga kababayan sa Pilipinas. Or good morning sa ating mga kababayan sa Pilipinas. Magandang umaga, magandang gabi dito sa Amerika. My name is Josie Moralidad Azayman. Welcome sa ating programang On the Air with FACC dito po sa PHLV Radio Las Vegas. And syempre kasama ko ang ating mga board of directors and co-founder. First, we have Ed Logan. Hi, Ed.
Hey, Josie, again, it's Friday. We're always ready to go. And I'm sure our guest tonight is excited to share her cancer journey. I know people will be inspired. So good morning to our listener in the Philippines and good evening to our listener here in the US.
Yes, and remember, this is the Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And tonight, October 22, is the night before the big event, right?
Yes.
And of course, gusto ko ring ipakilala sa inyo from Maryland, we have Emerich Richie Vicente. Hi, Emerich.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Yes, it is Friday again. I'm so glad to see you all. And I'm so excited to meet our special guest tonight. And good morning, Pilipinas. Magandang umaga po sa inyo. I know, have your coffee and enjoy the whole day and enjoy the show that we're going to learn a lot more about someone's journey on their cancer. And also, we're really excited too. I'm really excited because tomorrow is our couture.
I know, you're gonna do the fashion show. So
yeah, I'm gonna be there.
Yes. Okay, now we would like to introduce our special guest tonight. She is the National Security Correspondent for Fox News Channel. Guys, do you watch Fox News?
Oh, yes.
I do.
Me too.
Yes.
And has been based at the Pentagon, covering military and intelligence matters since March 2007. She frequently reports from Kabul, Afghanistan, and has covered events such as Operation Enduring Freedom and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in the Middle East. On September 28, 2009, I was also diagnosed the month of September. She discovered a lump while nursing her new baby and was soon diagnosed with stage 3 triple negative breast cancer, affecting 15 to 20% of women. When the tumor was discovered, it was almost the size of a grapefruit. After her diagnosis, she underwent many aggressive treatments, including 17 rounds of chemotherapy, double mastectomy, and radiation that resulted in no evidence of the disease and was declared cancer-free and in remission in 2010. She believes that a positive attitude and healthy lifestyle made a big difference in her battle against cancer. She is now wearing her scars with pride. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jennifer Griffin. Hi,
Thank
Jennifer.
you, Josie. Thank you for that incredible introduction. Thank you.
Okay, guys, you have the floor.
Sure. I'll ask first, Jennifer. We normally, when we start the show, we don't talk about cancer right away because we want our listener to know you as a person. So in terms of hobbies, what do you do besides covering the most important current events of the country here in the US? So what hobbies do you have?
Well, I don't have a lot of time for hobbies because I have 3 children, and but when I did have cancer, I started dedicating myself to Pilates. So I start my day every morning with
I did that.
Pilates.
Mhm.
Yes, so I rotate between Pilates and yoga. And when I get home at night, I usually go for a walk with my husband, who's also a journalist. We met when I was 20 years old in South Africa, right before Nelson
Mhm.
Mandela was released from prison. And so we've been together ever since. We both cover national security, and we usually go for a walk near our house. We live near the National Cathedral in Washington, so it's a very beautiful,
It's a beautiful
way to sort of
neighborhood.
cleanse
Mhm.
the
I've been
day.
there at your house, but you were not around. We were outside, and I was playing with your doggy.
I have
And
a
on that day, I
cockapoo.
had a dog bite.
I have a very cute little Cocker Spaniel Poodle mix named Cleo. And she looks like a stuffed animal, and she's very human. And I remember when I was diagnosed with cancer that my cockapoo, you almost felt like she couldn't get close enough to me. And it's like she knew that I was sick.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And Emmerich, as I said, on the day that I was at Jennifer's house, I was talking to her nanny. I had that dog bite. But then when I saw the dog, it's like, oh my, come on.
Very cute,
And
huh?
I even had a picture.
Were you
and
scared?
your daughter was there. No, because she is so adorable.
Cleo. Beautiful name. Very
Thank
beautiful
you.
name.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Now, Jennifer, are you how old were you when you discovered your passion about journalism?
Well, I was 20 years old. I left
Okay.
Harvard at the time. I was a student, and I went down to South Africa to work at a newspaper. It was still, apartheid was still the law of the land. And so I wanted to see firsthand this transformation that was happening. And while I was there, Mandela was released from prison. And so that was my first big news story, and I'll never forget it. And I've been really hooked ever since. And my husband and I lived overseas for 16 years, and we lived in many places that were conflict zones, and eventually moved to Israel, which is where we met my nanny, Rosalina Espanol, who has been with us for 21 years. She raised all 3 of my children. When I would travel to war zones, Rose was always there, taking care of the children. And then fast forward a decade after I had cancer, she was diagnosed with a stage 4 lung cancer. And so she has been getting treated here in Washington, D.C. at Georgetown University Hospital, the same hospital that I was treated at. And I must say, she's getting the most amazing cancer treatment. And right now, she has no sign of disease as well.
And for you to take care of your Filipino nanny, that means something. Jennifer, when I was talking to her, she was like, oh my gosh, she is like a daughter to me. She always want to make sure I'm safe and sound. And she really wanted to go back to the Philippines. And I said, I know what you feel, but you know what? Take your time. You're still here.
Yeah. And to our listeners, we did an interview for Rosalina, and you can go back to our Facebook page and listen to that interview and how grateful she was to you, Jennifer.
Well, not as grateful as I am to her. We have a very strong connection to the Philippines because she is a very important member of our family, and we're very devoted to her family in the Philippines as well. And I think that she was one of the first Americans, I think, to get a vaccine when the vaccine for COVID came out, because for our family, the most important thing was to protect Rose.
So aside from Rose, do you have any Filipino friends?
Oh, we do have friends who lived in the Philippines in Cebu as well. They were based with the World Bank there. And my daughter right now is at Georgetown University, and one of her very close dorm mates is from the Philippines. So we really, every time, we have so many people who we've known from the Philippines and feel very, very close to the country. And of course, all of Rose's friends, her vast network here in Washington, D.C. They're all very much a part of our lives.
Now, Jennifer, there's a very important question from Ed.
Yes.
regarding
This is very important. The most
very
important
important.
question of the night.
Almost
What?
always, that is
Always.
his favorite question.
Yes. What is the most, if you taste a Filipino food or dish, what is the most favorite that you taste so far?
So easy.
Yeah.
Every birthday we have pancit because
Oh.
it is good luck, and
Yeah.
and we never pass a birthday without pancit.
That's great.
Yeah, the health and the long life and the good luck. Everything.
It has worked for us. It has worked for us all.
Yes.
Mhm. I just wanted to ask you, Jennifer, being a fellow journalist, guys, being a journalist, you don't have the control of your time. You're always on the go.
Yeah.
How do you manage your time as a mother, as a journalist, as a person? You also have to take
And
care
your health.
of your
Yeah.
health as a cancer
Yes.
survivor.
Well, I must say that it really was a wake-up call. When I was diagnosed with cancer in 2009, it was shortly after my third child, my son, Luke, was born, and I was still nursing him at the time. And it was when I was nursing that I found the lump, and I thought it was mastitis. I had no idea that it was a stage 3 cancer or a large tumor. So it really, that woke me up to my health. And so I got through the year, which was very hard in terms of the treatment. And part of that treatment, I dedicated myself, because triple negative breast cancer does not have a cure per se, and does not have a medication that will prevent it from coming back. I was told that eating a low glycemic index diet, low sugar diet, lots of fruits and vegetables, and lean proteins, almost a vegan diet, lots of vegetables, and also doing exercise every day. So even when I was getting chemotherapy, I was exercising and doing Pilates, and that gave me the strength in my core, the strength in my pec muscles to recover from my mastectomy. So I've really found that trying to keep that balance is so important. But how do we do it? How does any mother do it? How does any mother in the Philippines do it? We are all so busy, whether you're a journalist or you are, anytime you have a family and children. We're very grateful for the help that Rose has given us over the years. But I like to say to my husband that we're like a 3-legged stool, myself, Greg, and Rose. Without one of those legs, we would have toppled over. But we really have a very strong family. My mom also lives nearby in Washington. I grew up in Washington, D.C. And so she is a very wonderful grandmother who is a part of our family. We have so many friends, and the
You
children
have
grew
the
up
support system.
we have a great support system, and the children grew up very independent, knowing that the work we're doing as journalists is important. And we saw that with Afghanistan recently. My husband and I started going to Afghanistan in 1993, and we have been covering it ever since. And so this last month has been particularly stressful for us.
Guys, the first time I met Jennifer, remember that first meeting, Jennifer, you told me your diet about quinoa. And
Yes.
I changed
like
my
quinoa.
diet. I always eat quinoa now instead of rice. Filipinos could not live without rice. But then rice converts into sugar. So I said, okay, I'm going to follow Jennifer with quinoa.
Well, quinoa is great. Rice is wonderful as well. But I know that's a staple of the diet. But again, if you're going through cancer treatment, eating vegetables and fruits and fresh things, nothing packaged, nothing fried. It really does make a difference, and lots of water. I used to drink so much water when I was going through chemotherapy, and would eat ginger because ginger was a natural way to fight the nausea. So I really used food as medicine when I was going through treatment.
Yeah. And Jennifer, that is so great, because part of our program and our mission is about education and awareness. So really an important component of that is also for the diet. But good question in terms of education and awareness. Is there any family history of cancer in your family? And then as part of the annual checkup is really what we're trying to also spread the importance. So what do you think about those two particular topics?
Well, first of all, screening is the most important thing. I definitely have a family history. My father died of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. On my mother's side, my mom is a survivor of breast cancer and ovarian cancer. My maternal side, we had pancreatic cancer. My grandmother eventually succumbed to pancreatic, but she survived in her 60s lymphoma. So we have a lot of instances of survival, but we also, sadly, most members of my family have had cancer, but we've learned how to live with cancer and we've learned how to get through chemotherapy. And so for us, we never keep cancer a secret. Whenever we get a diagnosis, we share it with our family, we share it with our friends, and that is where we get the strength to get through the diagnosis. So I really always recommend to people not to keep it a secret. It used to be that cancer was the C word and you wouldn't tell people you had it. But now it really is so important to get the support that you get from your
And to
community.
tell your story. The thing about
Absolutely.
Filipinos, we're very reserved, and sometimes telling our story, like, our cancer journey, is not that easy to open up to everybody.
It's so important to share your story because it helps you heal. I mean, having cancer can be a trauma, and getting through the treatment, it can be very traumatic. And I work with veterans of the military, and sometimes I see the effects that having gone to war have on them. And it's no different for cancer patients. They also have trauma, and telling our stories is the best way, and sharing it and telling people when you feel down, it really helps them to help you. And when I was sick, all of my friends got together and they cooked food for me, and they had food delivered to my house, so that healthy food, so that I could take one thing off of my plate, so that I didn't have to think about that. And it allowed our family to then come together. And we, we found my cancer diagnosis really was a family affair. I used to take my daughters, who were 6 and 8 years old at the time. I took them to go wig shopping because I lost all my hair. I used to have long blonde hair, and
I saw you with that long blonde
The
hair.
long hair on the
I
picture.
spent all of my time at the hairdresser, and now I have this short hair. It's natural. I love my hair. It's again, as Josie said,
beautiful.
this was
Yeah,
this is my part of the scars that I wear with pride. But
strength of a scar. Yeah.
So
Jennifer,
yeah, go ahead, Rich.
no, I'm just
We're all
curious if we
excited to ask
I
questions.
know. If we can step back a little bit, the day that you were diagnosed with cancer, what was the reaction of your husband and then your daughters? If you can tell us about that, and kind of, I guess, because there's some families out there right now that is probably getting this news that they are diagnosed with cancer, and you've already communicated to not keep it as a secret, talk about it.
Yeah,
But
and
what was the reaction in the family?
what was in your mind when your doctor informed you that you have a cancer?
well, it was early morning, and I was heading to work, getting ready to come to the Pentagon. And I received a phone call, and it was a holiday. It was the Jewish holiday, Yom Kippur, and I was not expecting to hear from my Jewish doctor on that day. And so
Are you
I knew
Jewish,
that
by the way?
I'm not Jewish, but we lived in Israel, so I know how important Yom Kippur is.
Yeah.
And so when I got that call, my sister was staying with me, and remember, my son Luke was just 6 months old, and it was a complete shock. It was a shock. But I didn't have time to fall apart. I didn't have time to feel sorry for myself. I immediately took my notepad, and like any good journalist, I started taking notes from the doctor, and I then immediately started researching. I assigned to my friends to start researching the type of breast cancer that I had, because it was a special type called triple negative. And it's very important with cancer. Not all cancers are the same. And you really have to find the specialist who specializes in your type of cancer. And not even if within the breast cancer community, there are specialists in a particular kind of breast cancer. And it is so important to have a friend when you go to doctor's appointments, taking notes. My husband would go to the doctor's appointments with me. He would go to the chemo appointments with me. And sometimes, actually, we wrote a book about our time in Jerusalem while I was going through chemotherapy, and he would sit next to me and we would story tell. And sometimes I wouldn't feel like it. I mean, it was, it was very traumatic,
Sure.
but telling stories and working on a project with him helped us stay connected, because it can be a real strain on a marriage when you get a cancer diagnosis. No doubt your partner is impacted as much as you are. And sometimes your partner doesn't react emotionally the way you would like them to react. But my husband was always very supportive. He's a very steady, non-emotional guy. So he helped me stay very steady and calm through this. But my daughters, they were 6 and 8 years old. And so when I told them, you tell kids a different way, but you don't keep secrets from them, because they know,
Smart.
and they sense it. And it was so important for them to be part of the journey that we went to shop for wigs together. They named my wigs. They helped me wash my wigs on the weekends. They also, the 6-year-old videotaped me as I was getting my hair shaved. I went to my hairdresser, and my friends flew in so that we could shave my hair together. And I shed a tear, but having my daughter watch it and document it, it was, she used to take me, she was in 1st grade at the time. She took me to school, and all the kids rubbed my head, my bald head, and asked me all sorts of questions. And most of them told me about their dogs who had had cancer. So that was how they coped. But it was so important for me to meet them on their level and not have it be something scary for them.
I just wanted to follow up. You mentioned about triple negative breast cancer. Mine, I'm HR positive. What does it mean in layman's term, triple negative?
Well, triple negative means that you are negative for 3 markers. So you're not estrogen positive, you're not HR2 positive or HER2 positive, which is a growth hormone, and you're not, what was the third marker? There's another marker that you're negative for all 3. And each of those other markers, they have drugs that have been found to stop the return of the disease. So if you are estrogen positive, you might take tamoxifen after you've gone through treatment, and that will prevent a recurrence. The same with HER2 positive, you take Herceptin. But triple negative, they haven't found that cure yet, or that medicine that can prevent a recurrence. So it is a little more rare. 20% of women have it. It can be very aggressive, and the recurrence, if it occurs, usually happens in the first 2 years, and it can be very deadly. But I was very lucky. I got past the 2-year mark, and then I get checked every year. I don't have to do mastectomies anymore because I had a double mastectomy. But I don't have to do mammograms anymore, excuse me, because I had a double mastectomy. But I recommend every woman, Rose gets her mammogram once a year, and we do colonoscopies, because the 3 things that are the biggest that you can protect yourself with screenings: mammograms for one, Pap smears for cervical cancer, getting the HPV vaccine when you're 13 years old. If you have teenage children, that is the best single vaccine that can prevent cancers later on in life. And it's so important for boys and girls age 13 to get the HPV vaccine, because it really can prevent cancer. And then colonoscopies. We do our colonoscopies starting at age 40 every 5 to 10 years, depending on your what your doctor tells you. And for men, the PSA exam will tell you about your prostate.
Yeah.
It's really important. These screening tests are so important, and they save lives. You've got to embrace your health. You've got to do the screening.
Mhm. By the way, if I'm gonna lose my signal tonight, bear with us because I just got a word that 45 minutes. I know we have this unlimited Zoom account, but anyway, I'm going to text you just in case we're gonna be off the air. Okay, Rich, or do you have a question?
Another thing as part of the community and the outreach, that the importance of that for anyone, because sometimes they're really looking for that embracement of that community. What did you attend any support group? Because some find support group as a good tool or resources to cope their cancer journeys.
One of the best support groups, I did attend a support group, but one of the best workshops that I attended is something called Look Good, Feel Better. And Look Good, Feel Better is a wonderful program sponsored by the beauty care products, personal products industry, and the American Cancer Society. And they basically show women and men who are going through cancer treatment how to wear their wigs, how to put on lipstick and to draw on your eyebrows and to do your makeup so you don't look as sick. Because what they found is psychologically, if you look good, if you dress up for your appointments, if you don't, if you put on makeup, that it actually affects your morale, and it affects your positive outlook, can actually affect whether you survive cancer or not.
That's
And
right.
so Look Good, Feel Better was one of the better support group programs that I was involved with. And I'm very supportive of them to this day, because I think it really helps women particularly get
Are
through.
they here in DC?
They are all over the country. In fact, most hospitals have a Look Good, Feel Better workshop. So if you have been diagnosed, you should ask your hospital or your doctor, oncologist, what the closest Look Good, Feel Better workshop is, and sign up for one right away when you because usually you lose your hair after about 17 days if you're taking certain chemotherapy drugs. And so I always recommend to people to shave their head before the hair starts falling out, because you want to kind of take control of the situation. You don't want to let the hair just dribble out and feel like you're being victimized by the chemotherapy. You want to be strong and take control, and then wear beautiful wigs. I had 3 beautiful wigs when I was going through treatment, and some days I just felt like wearing a soft cap. But Look Good, Feel Better really helped me, and I highly recommend it if anybody is going through treatment.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. Definitely, we will research that. We're gonna include a link in our Filipino American website. We will raise and this awareness.
We will reach out to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
By the way, did you face any obstacles during your treatment process?
Well, I think everybody faces obstacles. I think it's important to recognize that they're normal. And I think it's important I remember when I was taking the steroids, they give you steroids to help with the chemotherapy afterwards. And I remember the steroids made me very angry. And so I was lashing out at my family. And then we realized that it was really the reaction to the steroids. And so the doctor took the steroids.
I hate that prednisone, it makes you feel agitated.
And they have to warn you. They should warn you.
Oh my gosh.
I was very lucky and I think there's so many good anti-nausea drugs now that I remember one was called Emend, and that was a magic drug. I never really had nausea through 17 rounds of chemotherapy. So really be aggressive with asking for the anti-nausea medications, because it's not like the old days where you have to feel sick going through chemotherapy.
And you always have to have that anti-nausea pill.
Yes.
I
But the
always have
other
with
thing,
me.
yeah, the other thing I would say is, Rose had this stage 4 lung cancer, but what we did that was different, and so her cancer came about 8 years after mine. Uh, what was different was now they are genetically profiling the tumor and they are doing targeted therapy. So she's getting the benefit of an incredible drug that hasn't even been approved yet by the FDA, but it's in the process of being approved. That's a targeted treatment. And those are like smart bombs. They go in and they get the cancer without having all the side effects of chemo. So you really want to go to your doctor and you want to ask if there's either immunotherapy or the genetic markers of the tumor can be studied so that you can get a targeted therapy. That's where cancer is making the greatest progress. The cancer treatment has improved so much from when I went through this a decade ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And tonight I want to tell you guys, my brother-in-law in Montreal,
Mhm.
he has this
Bernard.
aggressive form of prostate cancer. Everything did not work for him.
Oh,
No.
But can you believe, because of this clinical trial, right now, his tumor shrunk.
Yes,
Oh
it's
my God.
amazing what's
that's
happening.
amazing.
So never lose hope. If you've just been diagnosed, there are treatments out there. People are living for decades with
Right.
cancer. I mean, I have two very good friends who had a stage 4 ovarian cancer, and she is with us today because of an aggressive treatment. And I have a friend with a brain tumor who just sent me a photo saying that she had gotten the all clear on her scans. So even the most aggressive cancers now, there are treatments and there's a lot of hope.
Yeah, and the
Big
researchers
hope.
nonstop. The
Big hope.
researchers are nonstop. I met a gentleman last week. The immunotherapy that we're now talking about, it's part of his back research, and then now the son is continuing some of the other researches. It's just amazing how
Amazing.
we came about from from where we were back then.
Totally.
Obviously, if I can pick up another very important topic that Jennifer mentioned about look good and be in control. The topic of mental health and cancer journey is really a delicate topic, but
Yeah.
it has to be in the front and
They
center.
always go together.
Yeah. So, what do you think about that particular topic, Jennifer, in terms of the
Well,
mental?
I think that the hardest part of a cancer diagnosis, of course, the shock of the initial diagnosis is very serious. But I think the hardest part is after you finish treatment, because suddenly you're cut loose from all your appointments. While you're going through treatment, you don't have time to think about you're so busy and you're so focused. But it's when the treatments stop and the doctors say, okay, come back in 6 months or come back in a year. And that's when the dark thoughts begin. That's when the anxiety begins. And that's when a lot of times the depression begins. And that's when you need to reach out and talk to a psychotherapist, a psychiatrist, or go to a group session and talk to cancer survivors. That's when you want to get involved in cancer groups who might be a nice support network. That's when, if you feel that you need to take some medication for the anxiety, it may not be forever, but there may be that window of period when it's most acute after the treatment stops. And you have to be realistic that that's really very, very common.
Wow. Thank you for that
Emma
voice.
Rich?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you again, Jennifer, because you described the family support earlier. Um, if you can share with us the family dynamic while you're in treatment and your husband is supporting you as well. If you can describe that, because there's families out there that's getting impacted and with 2 children or more or one. I
Yeah.
think from your point of view, I think that will be impactful.
I think it can be very hard on a marriage. And I think you have to understand, if you're a woman, you have to understand that your spouse, your partner or spouse or your husband is probably internalizing a lot of the emotions,
Yeah.
and they're not able to share those emotions. Maybe they feel vulnerable that if they share their emotions, then the whole family will fall apart.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's frustrating as a patient, because you want the person to cry with you, or they want them to emote with you, or you want their empathy. But that person thinks that by being strong, they're helping you more, or they're helping the family more. So finding that balance of how to communicate with your partner or spouse while you're going through treatment is so important, because it's no good to your survival if your family falls apart in the process of your treatment. In fact, they show that it has a negative impact on your outcome as a cancer survivor. So you don't want to let the strain of a cancer diagnosis cause you to get separated or divorced or strain the family.
Yeah.
You want to use all the positive energy that you can, and you want to recommit to communicating well with your partner. I think it's really important, because I think there are very serious studies showing that if you can stay connected as partners and as a husband and wife, or whatever partnership you have, you're going to get through this cancer diagnosis better. And your children you're going to be a role model for your children. Your children are going to learn that life has curveballs.
Yeah.
And you have to learn to be resilient. And the sooner they can learn that lesson, you have a chance to be a role model to them. And then when they hit a bump in the road in their life, whether it's health issues, or it just helps them keep in perspective what's important. So it's a real gift, this cancer diagnosis. It may not feel like it at the time, but it really was a gift to our family, I have to say.
Now, I just want,
go ahead.
I just wanted to follow up, since Rose is already like a part of your family.
So
What
much
was
more.
it like for you and her when you found out that she's also suffering from cancer and stage 4?
It was devastating. It was devastating, but I will say we knew what to do. And I remember I was heading out the door to the Pentagon to work. I had just come from Boston, where I had been with a friend who I had been in the hospital with her because she had been diagnosed with cancer. And Rose told me, Rose had gone to get a massage, and the masseuse had found a lump. And she said she thought she had a lump. And I nearly collapsed, because I was so drained from having dealt with my friend who had just been diagnosed with cancer. I have my brother was going through cancer treatment, and I just thought, I can't take any more cancer. But we knew what to do. We knew to get to the very best doctor for her kind of lung cancer. We knew to go to a specialist. We knew, if you're here in the United States, it's very important that you go to an NCI designated cancer center. That means a National Cancer Institute designated cancer center. There are about 50 hospitals in the country that are given that seal of approval from NIH. And don't just go to your local doctor. Don't just go to your, a local facility. If you live in any city, there is probably within a half-hour drive an NCI designated cancer center. Very important to get to those cancer centers, because they have the research, they have the researchers, they share the information, so you're getting the very latest and greatest in the cancer treatment. So very important to demand that excellence by going to an NCI designated cancer center. And we got Rose to Georgetown Hospital, which is an NCI designated cancer center with a very good specialist who specializes in lung cancer.
Jennifer, that is really a wise advice again, because I had that as well, where with the local oncologist here, I was transferred with my insurance. We demanded to be in Johns Hopkins, and I was
Johns Hopkins. That's where my father was treated. It's the best for a variety of cancers, and you have to, and you also have to get a second opinion. You have to get 2 opinions, because, and it's not an insult to your oncologist, because any good oncologist wants you to feel comfortable with the treatment. And if they aren't comfortable with that, you should get a new oncologist. But two opinions, very, very important. You don't want to slow down your treatment, but you do want to get those, make sure that they are agreeing with how you're proceeding with your treatment.
Josie,
can I?
Yes, go
Because
ahead.
I heard the word gift. Gift, I know being a cancer survivor, Josie, myself, and Emmerich being part of the caregiver and being touched, and you, Jennifer, I know there is always that blessings of us giving back to the community. And I know from your bio, we heard that you also involved in Cancer Foundation. So tell us a little bit of that as well, because our listener, we would like them to know what are your other extracurricular because of your time.
And you know, Jennifer, for us, we have these treatments, you know, Ed is doing this chemotherapy. It's not easy to run a nonprofit organization. And you're also dealing with your health issues, right? But we are sacrificing this because we know how it feels, especially for the cancer victims in other countries like Philippines. We are so lucky here in the United States that we have insurance, we have the best health care.
We really do. And we are so lucky. And so you want to get the most out of that. And one of the reasons I volunteer with the Prevent Cancer Foundation, I sit on their board, and I used to do a lot of the 5K walks and the Komen walk. And I've worked with many, many groups over the years, the Triple Negative Breast Cancer Foundation, which is up in New Jersey. But I really like the Prevent Cancer Foundation because it's talking about preventing this so that you and your family don't have to go through this. And it talks about healthy habits, and so much of what we put into our body causes cancer. And not all cancers are caused by environment, but there are plenty of things we can do to reduce the amount of possibility of getting cancer. The non-smoking campaign has been so important in America in terms of lowering cancer rates, but not smoking, very important. Keeping your weight at a healthy weight and not being overweight. Obesity can lead to cancer. Not drinking too much alcohol, very important, because alcohol can lead to some cancers. And exercising. So it's those kind of preventive measures, and having good health. Also sunscreen, wearing sunscreen, because skin cancer is so very important with the ozone layer being gone. So important to stay out of the sun, and to never use those sun tanning booths, because those are absolutely cause skin cancer. So there are just a lot of things that we can do to try and prevent cancer. And that's one of the reasons I volunteer with the Prevent Cancer Foundation.
Thank you.
Okay. Emmerich?
That's really a great information that you shared. I love it. I think it's very beneficial for our listeners. So now you're present. How are you doing with with the cancer? I think you're in remission now. You said you're going to the doctor periodically as required. And yeah, talk to us about that. And I'm glad that you're supporting a foundation as well. And you're here with us.
Yes, yes, and I'm supporting your efforts. Well, I'm very lucky. I'm now 11 years out from treatment. And so in terms of breast cancer, I don't really worry about it coming back, but I do my screenings for my colonoscopy. I also, you may have heard that Angelina Jolie, after she had her mastectomy, she decided to take out her ovaries and her uterus. I did the same thing because I had already had my children, and my grandmother used to say, if you don't need those organs anymore, get rid of them, because they can only cause you trouble as you get older as a woman.
There's an entry where it can go there. So
I also had hysterectomy like you.
Yes, and it's it can be, a lot of women sort of debate whether to do it and whether it's a good idea. I can tell you, I am so relieved to know that I don't have two other organs that could cause me trouble. And cause, so it's very difficult to screen for ovarian cancer. The other thing I really recommend doing is getting genetic screening. If you have
genetic testing, yeah,
very, very important, because they can test now and they can see if you have the BRCA1 or 2 gene. That is really important information, so you can know how to prevent that from ever becoming a breast cancer or ovarian cancer. And so I really think that screening is very important, and I take my health very seriously. And I wish I had a slightly less stressful life, because stress can lead to cancer, but but you also can't change your personality, and the work that I've chosen to do, it gives me a lot of satisfaction, and I feel every day, telling stories is a very important part of how I've chosen to live.
So what positive changes did you see in your life, and what did you learn throughout this process or your cancer journey?
Well, I think it's very important to have a very strong spiritual base. And some people find that through religion. Other people find it through just spiritual connectedness to other human beings and helping other people. I think that has been the sort of the greatest outcome of my cancer journey, that it's given me perspective on what's really important. I'm very devoted to my family. We're a very, very close family. But I think that sense that time, not to waste time, because we only have a limited amount of time, whether it's cut short by cancer or not. We must always get the most out of every day and out of life. So I live life at a pretty fast pace, and I never put off doing something tomorrow that I could do today. And I travel a lot. My family and I take fantastic, I would say we probably spend most of our money on experiences, on travel and vacationing in places that are beautiful, and learning about other cultures. And I think there's an inner strength that you get when you've had cancer, and there's a inner grace that if you can survive and you can give back to others, I think that really you can tell the cancer survivors out there, because they carry themselves in a certain way with a lot of strength.
Do you plan to travel in the Philippines?
Yes, I can't wait to go to the Philippines.
Really awesome.
Right now, COVID has stopped us from going, but certainly when Rose goes home, we will go with her and we will visit her, because we want her to be close to her family, but we also want to know that she's safe, and we want to see the beautiful Cebu city where she lives. And so I can't wait to go to the Philippines, and I understand your beaches are the most beautiful in the world.
Yes, especially Cebu. Cebu is so beautiful.
And I'm very close to Cebu.
You just let us know when, and we'll be there. We're all flying.
We're gonna be your entourage.
Absolutely, entourage. Yes.
And you're going to have worshippers there, because, like, for example, if you bring your daughter, I saw her daughter. She's very pretty. Oh my gosh! Everybody will say, "Can I have a picture?"
Instant celebrity.
They're all gonna think it's like, oh, she's a celebrity. She's in showbiz and all that stuff. That's amazing.
Ed?
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate this. Is amazing time, Jennifer, for sharing wonderful tidbits. Sometimes, having that kind of perspective for our listeners will give them the tools and the resources that they will need as they go through their journey. So really
absolutely. Well, thank you, Ed. And honestly, if you've been diagnosed out there, if any member of your family has been diagnosed, it's not the ending. It's just the beginning. And we're all here to tell you that you can survive a cancer diagnosis. You just need to embrace it and to get the best medical care, to work with your doctors, take care of your health, and to keep your mental health strong, because you've got to have a positive attitude to get through, and you have to be a bit of a warrior to get through a cancer diagnosis.
Is there a plan to writing a book of your cancer journey, Jennifer?
Well, I've told my story to a few books, and I'll have to I'll share a link with you so that you can share it with your audience. But there's some wonderful anthologies talking about cancer journeys and surviving cancer. But I don't think I wish I had time to write a
The
book.
time,
Where
exactly.
the Pentagon never stops, unfortunately.
Mhm. I would like to follow up this question. Being a Pentagon journalist, and you were exposed in the war in Afghanistan, Middle East, like Israel. Do you think that experience helped you in recovering from your cancer diagnosis? It made you a stronger person.
I really think so. When I was pregnant with my daughters in Jerusalem, it was the start of the Intifada and it's after 9/11. And I would go to work wearing, even when I was pregnant, a flak jacket. And we covered the military incursions into the Gaza and West Bank, and we covered suicide bombings. And that was sort of a part of who I was as a young woman and as a pregnant mom. Once I was diagnosed with cancer, I used those same skills that I used as a war correspondent to fight the cancer. It was a war inside my body. I didn't expect to fight a war inside my body. I was used to covering other people's wars, but at the same time, I had a certain skill set that did allow me to really to fight and to get through this. And a lot of those skills from being a correspondent, a foreign correspondent, helped me in my cancer journey.
I think your activity in your life and your work matches the energy or whatever it is that to control that cancer in you. So that's really amazing.
Now, at this point in time, everybody's saying that all cancer survivors are strong, right? And brave. How would you describe the Jennifer Griffin that we are interviewing right now?
Well, I think there are times in our lives where we're all very strong, and there's times when we're very vulnerable. And when I was going through treatment, I was very strong on the one hand, but there were private moments where I was very vulnerable. And I think what you're seeing right now is somebody who walked through the flames, and fire can make you stronger, and it can make you sharper, and it can also make you, there's an inner strength that comes from having gone through cancer that you can't take away from somebody. And so I'm not always strong. And there are times, particularly the last month when I was covering the Afghan crisis, a story that is near and dear to my heart. And, I just wrote a piece tonight about Afghan evacuees and families of 10 people who are stuck in limbo on US military bases around the world who left with the clothes on their back. We can't imagine the horror that people have to experience in their lives, whether they're refugees or experienced violence of some sort. And cancer is another sort of form of violence that attacks our body, but we do have much greater inner strength than we really realize at the start of a diagnosis. And so once you get through that, I think you live the rest of your life with that strength. And so, but it's not that I am not wobbly on some days, and I sometimes exhaust myself because I try to do too much, but I do try to remember what's important and keep some perspective of what's important.
We have 3 minutes. My last question is, do you have other hopes and dreams aside from seeing your children, having a good life and your family intact and everything's going to be okay? What are your hopes and dreams aside from having a good life with your family?
I would say my hopes and dreams right now, other than the health of my family and seeing my children thrive, and my hopes have to do with progress. I would like to see the medical community continue to find a cure for cancer. I would like to see progress in terms of human rights and democracies that are anti-authoritarian and fight back against some of the dark tendencies that we as journalists have to cover every day. I'd like to see progress. And as long as we continue to see progress, I mean, the beautiful thing that we saw with this terrible global pandemic with the coronavirus is how medicine, modern medicine and the vaccines, they work, and they work really well. And any cancer patient should feel comfortable getting the COVID vaccine because it will protect you as you're going through your treatment. So I believe in science, and I wish that we could all come together and be more unified in the way we view science and progress and human values. I'm tired of covering division in the world. I'm tired, I'm exhausted as a journalist from covering the human condition, which seems to be always about fighting. I would like a little more positive news. And so that's my wish at this time.
Okay, very well said. Thank you so much,
Thank you so
Jennifer.
much.
Oh, thank you guys. I'm so proud of what you're doing and how you're helping the Filipino community, which is so near and dear to my heart. I just want everyone to know out there, you can do this. If you're going through cancer treatment, you can do this.
Okay. There you go,
Thank you
ladies
so
and
much.
gentlemen. Maraming salamat po sa ating mga followers dito sa PHLV Radio Las Vegas and for listening to us on the air with FACC. And
Good night, everyone. Thanks
Yes.
again.
Good night. Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you very
The
much.
Filipino American Cancer Care has just brought you On the Air with FACC, tributes and support to those impacted by cancer. On the Air with FACC, the Filipino American Cancer Care on PHLV Radio.
Just like a friend from back home.
This is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio.